we've heard this amazing thing that you can generate income through your podcast. And we're
Mhm.
like, and then we all Google it, right? We're like, how do you do this? And so we all know that there's different streams that are possibly out there. And this one stream, corporate sponsorships, is a thing. And for me and my show Flute 360, around month 6, I decided I'm putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this show. Where do I start monetizing?
Welcome to Podcast Coaching with Christine, a resource for growth, motivation, and community for podcasters. I'm your host, Christine O'Donnell. I'm an Emmy-nominated TV journalist and podcast coach. And while podcasting is something many can do, keeping at it, overcoming imposter syndrome, and embracing our vulnerabilities as strengths doesn't come easy. That is why we need a little bit of coaching from time to time. Each week, I interview someone who has an exceptional story and talent that will help independent podcasters grow their shows. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we have Dr. Heidi K. Begay. She is a self-employed teacher, flutist, podcaster, entrepreneur, and nonprofit organizer. She currently teaches flute remotely and throughout the metropolitan and throughout Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. She is the host of the show Flute 360. She's also a course creator, guys, and a creative consultant. One of her top courses, Generating Income as a Podcaster through Corporate Sponsorships, which is incredibly interesting, I think, for all of us podcasters. Heidi, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh my goodness, I'm so stoked to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'd love to just kind of start with like your background. How did you find podcasting? I know a little bit about this already because we've had these conversations, but just to kind of let the audience learn a little bit more about how you found podcasting when your passion is playing the flute and
Yeah,
teaching.
yeah, that's a great question. And for your listeners who are podcasters, my story is very unique, as like everybody's. Podcasting fell into my lap. It was my doctoral thesis, actually. And I was very blessed to have a committee be so open-minded to something new and creative that wasn't the traditional way of doing things. And so there's so much magic to how Flute 360 was born, and I won't go into all the details, but this little detail I think is important. My husband is an audio video engineer. And so when we went to Lubbock, Texas in 2015 to start my doctorate, he left his full-time audio job through our church. And we went to Lubbock and he said, okay, let me be an audio engineer out in Lubbock at some church, but nobody was hiring. And so he had to get really creative and he said, I'm going to start my own business. And so JK Media Productions was formed, and he's a musician too. So he started going out and putting his feelers out to musicians and asking them, hey, do you need help with your audio and video needs in your music world? And that was happening, but actually the huge stream of income that was coming through our door were podcasters were needing help. And so he was like, this is so random, what is this? And so he started helping podcasters from 2015 to current. And every now and then he would say, hey, Heidi, these podcasters are doing this. They're designing a course. They are getting sponsorships. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm a musician and I'm getting my doctorate in flute performance, whatever, And then next thing you know, my friends and colleagues and my committee are saying, hey, Heidi, you should start a flute podcast. And I was like, what? No one's going to listen to that. And the idea just really started, stewing with me. And I thought, hey, that could be a lot of fun. And so Flute 360 was born. And then post-graduation, I kept it up because I really loved it. I really loved connecting with people. I really loved picking experts' brains. And more importantly, I loved sharing this valuable knowledge to the public for free. So that's a little bit of how Flute 360 was born. And it's really interesting to see how my husband's world collided with mine, and then boom, magic.
So does that mean you and your husband work together?
We do.
How is that?
Do you see the wrinkles?
Funny.
No, he is phenomenal. He is my best friend, and I am so blessed to have a partner, not only in my personal realm to keep asking me to be my better self, but then also a business partner who I love to collaborate with. I get to see him throw his magic onto projects, and I get to see his wheels and his brain turn. And I think, how cool is this? I will say we have to create healthy boundaries though. So from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, we are co-business owners. And then at 6 o'clock, I am his wife, and he'll come to the table and say, hey, I have this idea for business, blah, blah, blah. And I say, that is great. We are going to talk about that tomorrow. So anyone who is going to be working with his or her partner, just know I think healthy boundaries is so important, because work can just stew into the personal side of things so easily.
Absolutely. I actually feel like that is something like my husband and I don't technically work together, but I think that as an entrepreneur, and I don't know if you feel this way, Heidi, it's that for me, it's hard for me to turn my mind off. And I think a lot of podcasters struggle with this too. Like I'm always like looking at a problem with like a new look, or from a new place. Not always a problem either. Just like I look at a situation and I'm like, oh, how else could I look at this? How else could this happen? What else could we be doing here? How can we maximize our time? How can we maximize our energy? How can we make more of a profit from this versus that? And it's like so hard to tell that part of my mind to just shh.
Yep.
Mhm.
So true. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. I will lay in bed at nighttime and I'm thinking of, it's like this spider web and all of these
Mhm.
connections. And you're like, ooh, if I did this, it could affect this and that. And oh, the wheels are turning all the time. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm getting better at practicing. I need to take care of me. I also need to take care of this relationship that I call a marriage, and be a wife. But then at the same time, we've taken on this task of working together in the business. And so if I'm not very clear with those boundaries, then it can get really sticky and messy. And I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Tell me, how do you do it though? But like, how do you be clear with those boundaries? Like, I think I need a lesson in this. How do you do that?
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Please,
you're,
Heidi.
yes, Christine, you're putting me on the spot and I love it. But my little piece of wisdom that I can give, I'm such a visual person. I need to see and I need to lay out the different roles and the different hats that I'm wearing. And so I have this beautiful, I can send it to you sometime in a text message or something. I have this beautiful chart where it says me, health, family, fun, travel. And then I'm the owner of Flute 360. And in Flute 360, there are 7 departments. There's the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the CTO, the CMO, and you guys can look up all those abbreviations. Most of you know what all of that is anyways. But I delegate and I say, okay, right now I'm wearing this hat of CEO. I'm strategizing for the business for this hour. Okay, that hat is down. I'm going to go get a snack. Literally. And then, okay, now I'm hopping into the marketing department. I'm going to strategize about the podcast and the content and social media. Okay, that hour is done. Boom. And so for me to just see it mapped out, for me to enter into that role and give myself permission to step into that role and then step out of it and say, done. And then I shift gears. That's what works well for me. And everybody has a strategy, a unique way of going about it. But for me, that serves me well.
I love it. Thank you for kind of like painting that picture for us. Is your snack a cookie?
That's the important question. Yes, that's the question of the day. It mixes, it's a mixture of espresso,
Mhm.
dark chocolate, fruit, and or nuts.
Yeah. So I just think that it's my takeaway from that is you are your own person first,
Mhm.
and then Flute 360 is like not who you are. It's just
Yeah.
something that you do, even though you
Yep.
have all these different hats that you wear within that. And I think that for people like myself who maybe are not as good at delegating those different tasks to the different parts of our brain, um, it just feels like all of it's all up at the top at the same time, and that can feel really overwhelming. And then podcasters are like, I can't move. I don't
Yeah.
know what to do first. Yeah.
That's exactly why I had to chart it out, because
Mhm.
you go to the computer and you see the email from the website guy and social media and guest interviews to line up. And you're like, where am I? Because there are so many things going, there are so many different moving parts. And if you're not very distinct with how you're going to use your time, you can feel overwhelmed. And I love that word. Well, I don't like the word, but it's a good it's a good way to describe it, because I feel extremely overwhelmed if I'm not very clear, because that inbox can just be a pile of everything thrown in there and you're just like, what is this? And so yeah, I feel ya. I resonate with everything you said.
Um, well, thank you for giving us this like vision board idea. I would love the picture. Feel free to text that to me whenever you want.
Yeah. Yes,
I'll
definitely.
actually I'll include it in the blog post that I'll accompany this podcast. But so let's talk a little bit about what you do here, this generating income as a podcaster through corporate sponsorships. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, like most of your guests, they are podcasters. And so we've heard this, you know, amazing thing that you can generate income through your podcast. And we're
Mhm.
like, and then we all Google it, right? We're like, how do you do this? And so we all know that there's different streams that are possibly out there, affiliate links, affiliate programs, donations, your own product, services, and offerings. And this one stream, corporate sponsorships, is a thing. And for me and my show Flute 360, I really, around month 6, I decided I'm putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this show. Where do I start monetizing? And so I considered those different streams that I just listed, but the stream that really caught my eye was the corporate sponsorships. I really thought that I had something built that was of value to the community, something where corporations would possibly want to invest in. And so I thought, hey, let me go at it, let me try. And going back to Eric with his audio business, him helping podcasters, I was hearing those nuggets on the sidelines. These podcasters are getting corporate sponsorships. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then fast forward 6 months into Flute 360, it actually started pertaining to me. And so I just got curious and I just said, okay, let's see if this is possible. And sure enough, 1 month later, I received my first corporate sponsorship from the William S. Haynes Company out in Boston. And to date, I've worked with 15 different corporations, and it's a little mixture of everything under this music umbrella, between instrument makers, music shops, nonprofit organizations, flute festivals, etc. And so I'm really proud of that. And I decided, to go back to your question about the class, I decided, okay, there's proof in the pudding. I'm doing it. I'm generating income. And, over time, through these different Facebook groups, I'm noticing podcasters say out loud, how do I obtain corporate sponsorships? And I noticed that this was a pain point. And like any entrepreneur, you see a problem and you find a solution. And so I said, okay, let me create a course. I'm doing it. And so generating income as a podcaster through corporate sponsorships was born.
That makes, I mean, all the sense. So you've had 15 different corporate sponsorships in the past year? Is that right?
Oh, I wish. I'm good, but I'm not that good. No, in the course of 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years,
Yeah.
15 different corporate sponsorships. And can I ask how much money you've made?
Yes, you can. It's nothing to totally gloat, but it is a stream, and I've made close to $7,000.
So
So about 3,000 the first year and about 4,000 the second year.
just through the corporate sponsorships in your podcast. So at this point, at least your podcast is paying for each other
Yep.
like a couple times over.
Yep.
Hmm.
Exactly. So it's nothing like, and I want to be extremely honest because it's nothing like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if you add that with the different streams, then it starts becoming, this full circle of profits, coming through your pocketbook. So it is one stream, and it does help with the podcast's production costs.
Absolutely. So does your husband produce your podcast, by the way? Or does
He
he edit
does.
it?
He does. So do you see how very clear I have to go to him and say, I'm coming to you as your client, your podcast host. You need to take out those ums and ahs. I'm
So
not
does
coming. I'm not coming to you as your wife. I'm coming to you as your client right now.
This is the hat I'm wearing. Also, so do you pay him from the corporate sponsorships or is that not?
No, actually, that's a great question. If I do get a check for the month, I will look at him and say, congratulations, you made half of this. And he actually does receive that half of the check.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So you have
Yeah.
it like actually divvied up. So like your
I,
business is
yep,
you're
I
paying your
say,
employee.
I am paying my employee. So, because he does premium edits, and we all know how expensive those can be. And so, again, I don't want him to think that one, I'm taking advantage of him, and two, I want him to see that his hard work is, being fruitful. So, it's really a business.
I mean, I just think that's such a great lesson for people listening who are like, how do I do this? And do I pay myself a check too?
Yeah.
Like, and for me, that's been one of the hardest things for a bit,
Mm.
like for not to actually write myself a check so that it goes in my personal bank account
Uh-huh.
instead of my business bank account. Like everything's been
Yeah.
kind of just going back into the business, but then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wait, I need to pay myself.
Yeah. You have
'Cause
needs
how else are
too.
things gonna get paid for? But, like, it's like this weird, like, moment where you're like, "Oh, wow, what's happening?"
Yeah. Yeah. Again, just finding those priorities and,
Yeah.
taking care of what's necessary.
How did you learn how to do that?
Oh my goodness. Girl, you've got all the questions today. Um, mostly through trial and error,
Mhm.
noticing, okay, again, going back to, the lovely introduction you gave me, I'm an educator. And so a lot of it is looking at my world and seeing a problem, finding a solution, strategizing, try to, and helping my students. They'll come with these problems, and I have to get really creative and super curious to find a problem solving machine or a set of solutions for them in order to conquer said problem. And so I think with that mindset, that's just what I bring into my world. So a lot of it's trial and error, and then just finding what works.
I think that it's also, like, different. I'm so mesmerized by people who think at like problems and situations differently than I do, especially those people. And it seems like you're one of these people, and it's probably because of maybe it's your personality type, maybe it's your background in education, but who looks at a problem and then just like simplifies, and everything becomes very organized and streamlined. And I am so inspired by people who are
Yeah.
able to do that. I just like feel like I want to shadow you all day and just watch what you do. Watch what you do and how you do it. Um, yeah,
You're
that's
so sweet. That's too kind. Yeah, it's only because I'm a mess. It really like I'll be the first to admit it. I'm a mess. And so in order to demystify myself, I have to do it that way, else nothing will get done and nothing will make sense in this crazy brain of mine.
Yeah. Okay. So we both got crazy brains. Good.
Yeah.
Um, so so if there is a podcaster who is listening right now and they're like, goodness, so where do I start if I want to get a corporate sponsorship? And what does that mean? Is that like what's a corporate sponsorship? Like or a corporate sponsor, I guess I should say.
Yeah, very good question. I think it just boils down to, you're going to businesses or corporations that would be in sync with your brand and for you guys to share the same targeted audience. If that if that's not in sync, then it's not going to work. So being a flutist, right? I would never go to Purina Cat Chow and say, hey, sponsor my show. It would just be a miss. So to answer your question, a corporate sponsorship, you are asking for monetary, support in exchange of this partnership, in exchange of saying, hey, I have the audience you desire to market your products, services, and offerings through your company. Let's exchange. You have funds that could help support my show, and therefore a business partnership is formed.
So do you like have a list and you like brainstorm like all your dream corporate sponsors and then do you like research like then is there a research period where you're like, "Oh, so who works in the marketing department over there?"
Yep, you've got me. You have a little camera in my house and you're seeing how I'm doing it. You're spot on. I have a long list, and then I don't reach out to everybody at once because that would be crazy. I strategically decide what company would fit into X content seamlessly.
Mhm.
So, this music world, right, is so big. And if you're a listener and you have a podcast, you might find yourself, within the health industry or, the business industry, and that's so large. So you have to niche down and say, where am I? And you have to be working with, potentially working with those businesses. So for example, be really strategic who you reach out to. So like in February 2022, I did a Piccolo series. Now, in this music world, there are companies out there like Music and Arts, Guitar Center, some big names. Would I ever reach out to Guitar Center? No, because one, they don't sell flutes and they don't sell piccolos. So really for that February Piccolo series, there's no way I would waste their time or my time sending them an email saying, hey, be a corporate sponsor. That just doesn't make sense. So I was reaching out specifically to piccolo makers and flute shops who sold piccolo music, gadgets, etc. So that's how I was able to receive 3 sponsors that month. And so then you just rinse, repeat, whatever that saying is. Yeah. But I do have a list, but then from that list, I narrowed down specifically to be in cahoots with my content.
Got it. And I imagine you have a template for this and maybe
Yeah.
some other goodies that you work with people on with through your course.
Yes. Yeah. There's a big old Excel spreadsheet, and
Ah.
we've got goals and, check marks. It's glorious.
Got it. Um, how did you go about I'm curious about this because I do know a lot of podcasters are creating courses. How did you go about creating this course?
Yeah, very good question. It goes back to, again, just seeing the need in these social media groups and people just saying, hey, how do you do this? And then really, it was designed too because people who were my podcasting friends and podcasters who were in my orbit were noticing, at the beginnings of my episodes saying, this episode is brought to you by Keith Piccolos. And people caught on. They're like, wait, how are you doing this? And so instead of just giving away free information, I decided, well, this could be a stream. Maybe I could actually teach people how to do this at a very low cost. I think the price of the course and the different offerings like the PDF and the video are extremely affordable. So I really genuinely wanted to help people through this endeavor. So that way they weren't having to figure it out on their own like I did. I went into that Haynes call December of 2018, January 2019, deer in headlights. I looked at Eric and I was like, here we go. This is an important call and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And it was the worst feeling ever. It turned out okay, but the stars were aligned for that hour. But then the course developed because over the course of the year and a half, 2 years, as I was getting more yeses, right? I just took a step back and said, oh, this is why I'm getting the yes. This is why I'm getting the no. And I started noticing a pattern. And I said, okay, there's a strategy here. It's not just willy-nilly. There's something here. And then once you put it down into paper and you realize the who, the what, the when, the how, right? And then you map it out, you're like, this is a class. This is a course.
Mm-hmm. And so your course, is it like something people take online? Is it like, how does that work?
Very good question. So I break it up into 2 sessions and it is remote online through Zoom. And in class 1, I go through the who, what, where, when, how, all of that. And then everybody has a podcasting sponsorship assignment. They go off and do it, email me their files, and then I personally go through with a red pen, blue pen, pink pen, whatever, and I circle, edit, and then send back the feedback. So that way, when we come back to the second call, we can talk more in depth of those edits and that feedback that I wrote out in the email. So that way, you feel more confident. You feel way more confident of, oh yeah, somebody who's been there has examined the exact documents that I'm sending out to Music and Arts, Guitar Center, etc., whatever. And with that confidence, man, anything's possible. Rather than being like, is this good enough? Like, that's an icky feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that people should know before we skedaddle?
Yeah, I guess that I would love people to know that I love helping people. I love helping people scale up in their professional career, whether it's you trying to gain those corporate sponsorships or anything. Watching people connect the dots and watching people scale up in their profession is my high. I love it. This is why I'm put on this earth, is to help people soar. And that's what I want people to know about me. And so if you need a coach in this realm to obtain corporate sponsorships, I feel really proud of the work that I've put into the PDF, video, or remote class. And I know people will benefit from it. I mean, I've had a podcaster take the class, and that same week, the course wasn't even done, and she got her first corporate sponsorship. And so hearing that, I'm like, yes, yes. And so I just want to be your cheerleader and help you in that endeavor if that's what you want to do.
What do you think is people's biggest fear when they come to you?
Good question. Oh my goodness, you are meant to be a podcast host. Uh, their biggest fear is rejection. They are afraid of getting that no. It's going to happen, even with this. I mean, even with receiving 15, 16 corporate sponsorships, I've received a lot of yeses, but I've received a lot of no's too, and if they say no, that's okay. There are more opportunities right around the corner, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times people don't plunge and they don't take that next step of faith or go dive into the deep section. It's because they're afraid of rejection. But life is so short. It's so short. Just try. Who cares? If you totally do a belly flop, then laugh about it. Cool. All right. C'est la vie. And so, and I think that confidence factor is what I was really honing in on earlier, right? Like, if I can give you the tools to be confident, not that you're not going to receive that rejection, but having those tools to be confident will make you feel that much more, ready to go.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. So, guys, surprise, guess what? Heidi, Dr. Heidi will be hosting a workshop for Bright Sighted members coming up this May 12th. This podcast is being recorded in 2021. So, May 12th, 2021 at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 5 p.m. Central Time, which is Heidi's time zone. And that's 6 p.m. on the East Coast of the US. And those are all of the time conversions that I can do quickly and easily in my head. But this is available for anyone in the world who is listening to this podcast. And if they'd like to come and work with Heidi and see her and learn from her, we're going to be diving into. Can you talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about in the workshop?
Yes. So basically, we're going to be talking about building those relationships. We're going to talk about why you would obtain a corporate sponsorship, who it's for, and the different things that you need in that email, like a sponsorship form, collages, getting all your ducks in a row. So it's going to be a great time.
Oh, wonderful. If you'd like more information on that, be sure to check out the show notes. There's a discount code for anyone who is listening to this episode right now. You can come to that event and please use the discount code podcast coaching 20, and that's it. Podcast coaching 20. You're going to get 20% off. I so look forward to seeing you in there. And Heidi, thank you so much for being a part of this show today.
Oh, thank you, Christine. It was a delight.
Thank you. All right. Well, is there anything else you want people to know before we say goodbye?
Yes, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is Heidi. I was trying to say at and Heidi at the same time. At Heidi K. Begay. So HeidikayBegay. My name has got this little rhyme thing. So follow me on Instagram. I'd love to see you there.
Thank you so much. And check out her show, especially if you want to learn about the flute, how to play the flute. It is called Flute 360. That is also the name of her business. Heidi, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for listening to Podcast Coaching with Christine. If you have a guest suggestion or topic idea, make sure to send me an email at podcastcoachchristine@gmail.com. And if you know someone who has launched a podcast, or if they have started a podcast but they need a little bit more guidance when it comes to growing their show, please let them know about our show. Thanks for listening. Now let's change the world with our stories.